There comes a time in every life when the road narrows, when shadows stretch long across your path, and when the voices around you say, "Turn back." But a champion, a champion. Here's a different song. It rises not from the crowd, not from applause, but from deep within, where truth lives and courage has made its home. A champion is not made in the ring, or on the stage, or beneath the bright lights of praise. No, a champion is carved in silence, sculpted in the dark hours, when fear knocks loudest and faith must answer without trembling. It is not strength alone that builds a champion. It is softness too. The kind of softness that listens before speaking, the kind of softness that knows the pain of others and dares to lift them anyway. The mindset of a champion is this: champions are shaped in silence, not spotlight. When the world is quiet and no one is watching, that is when the true transformation begins. It is in the solitude of early mornings and the stillness of long nights that the foundation of greatness is laid. The applause does not build character. It merely echoes what was already earned in silence. The noise of the crowd may encourage, but it cannot replace the soul's private battles. There are moments in a champion's life that never make it to the stage or screen. Moments of doubt, moments of pain, moments of almost giving up. But it is in these very moments, when no eyes are on them, that they choose discipline over comfort, persistence over ease, and courage over fear. They are not shaped by victory alone. They are shaped by preparation, by consistency, by every small decision to continue. The late nights spent working while others sleep, the tears wiped in silence, the pain endured without witness. These are the quiet makings of a champion. In silence, the mind sharpens. It listens to the heart, hears its beating rhythm say, "Try again." It is in this quiet place where excuses fade and self-honesty emerges. Here, no one else can cheer or criticize. It is just the self facing the self, and in that face-off, strength is born. A champion must become their own source of motivation, their own anchor. They must learn to trust the quiet voice that says, "I am not done yet." The spotlight is fleeting, it dazzles and dims, comes and goes. But the silence, that is steady, it offers no promises and no praise. It simply waits, daring the brave to grow in its shadow. To most, silence feels empty, but to a champion, it is full of opportunity. It is the space where they can work, falter, recover, and refine, without the pressure of perfection or the noise of judgment. It is a workshop of the soul, where tools like patience, resilience, and faith are forged in the fires of trial and time. There is a kind of beauty in building alone. There is power in showing up when there's no reward in sight. Champions don't train because someone's watching. They train because they've made a promise to themselves, a quiet promise, one made not under stage lights, but under the pale glow of self-respect. They've whispered it during hardship, murmured it during fatigue. "I will not stop here." And every day they return to that promise, not for others, but for the person they are becoming. In silence, they fail more times than they succeed, but they keep going. They correct, they question. They fall and they rise, again and again. The world may not notice these invisible victories, but a champion does. Every inch gained in silence is worth more than miles earned in noise. Because what's gained in silence is carried forever. It becomes part of who they are, not just what they do. The spotlight is seductive. It flatters, but it cannot sustain. Only the strength born in silence can carry a champion through the storms. The lights may fade, the applause may stop, but the inner flame lit in silence, it never dies. It is steady, it is sacred, and it reminds the champion that they were always more than what the world could see. Falling is part of rising. Scars are symbols, not shame. Every person who dares to dream, to try, to push past the limits of fear and comfort, must also dare to fall. And fall they will, again and again. But these falls are not failures in the true sense. They are lessons wrapped in pain, packaged in moments of stillness, frustration, and reflection. They teach us where we are weak so we may become strong. They point out the cracks in our foundation not to destroy us, but to invite us to rebuild with something stronger than before, with understanding, with grace, with wisdom. There is a strange beauty in the stumble, in the unexpected drop from certainty to doubt. Because in those moments when the ground seems to give way, we learn the art of grounding ourselves not in circumstance but in resilience. The world may see the fall and call it defeat. But those who know, those who've risen more times than they can count, understand that falling is not the end of the road. It's simply a bend, a new shape to the path. The world teaches us to fear the scar. It tells us to hide what hurt us, to cover the evidence of pain, to erase any trace of being broken. But this teaching is a lie. Scars are not shameful. They are signs of survival. They are the body's and soul's testimony. I went through something. I was torn open, and I healed. Scars are maps, drawn in skin and spirit, that show where we've been and how far we've come. They are symbols of our grit, our refusal to stay down, our commitment to move forward even when limping. When a child first learns to walk, they fall repeatedly. No one scolds the child for falling. We applaud them for standing up again. Yet somehow, as we grow older, we learn to see our falls as evidence that we're not enough. We look at the bruises, emotional, physical, spiritual, and we hide them. We tuck them beneath smiles. We soften our voice so others won't hear the crack in it. We try to erase the story. But why should we? The fall is part of the journey. It is not outside of success. It is the very soil in which success is planted. If one has never fallen, then one has never stretched far enough to test their edges. Comfort doesn't teach resilience. Perfection doesn't teach empathy. Pain does. Struggle does. The fall is a tutor more honest than praise will ever be. It humbles the spirit while strengthening the core. It forces one to pause, to examine, to decide it. Will I get up? Will I try again? And in answering yes, the soul grows wings. Not because it knows how to soar effortlessly, but because it learns to rise despite the weight. In rising after a fall, there's a quiet dignity. Not one that shouts, not one that demands applause, but one that simply continues. A person who has fallen and risen carries something unshakable within them. They have seen their own weakness, and instead of running from it, they've befriended it. They've looked into the mirror and accepted what they saw. Not perfection, but perseverance. We live in a world obsessed with flawlessness, but it is the flawed who know the depths of their power. Those who have suffered understand compassion. Those who have fallen understand patience. The scared understand what it means to rebuild, to live with memory etched into flesh, and yet keep moving forward with open arms. Strength includes softness, empathy, and grace. We are too often taught that to be strong is to be hard, unshaken, and unyielding, that to be powerful is to never bend, to never weep, to never let the world see tenderness. But true strength is not found in armor or in walls. It is found in the ability to remain open while walking through the fire. Strength is the gentle hand that reaches out even when it's been burned before. It is the voice that remains calm when chaos shouts all around. It is the softness that chooses peace instead of dominance, that listens instead of controlling, that understands instead of judging. To be strong is to feel deeply and yet not be destroyed by what you feel. It is to hold space for your own pain without becoming bitter, and to hold space for the pain of others without becoming hardened. Empathy is not a weakness. It is a force. It takes great inner fortitude to look at someone else's wounds and feel them without retreating. It takes courage to stay soft in a world that tries to convince you that being numb is safer. But safety does not bring greatness. And greatness, the quiet kind that changes lives, begins in the heart that dares to care. Grace is another form of strength rarely recognized for its power. To offer grace to another human being, especially when they have faltered, disappointed, or misunderstood you, requires control over one's ego. It means choosing understanding over revenge, compassion over coldness. It is not passive, it is powerful. It says, I am not defined by your actions. I will respond from who I am, not from what you've done. That kind of response takes discipline, maturity, and emotional intelligence. It takes someone who knows themselves deeply, someone who has walked through storms and decided to bring calm, not thunder. Softness is strength when it chooses kindness in a world that often values cruelty as confidence. It is easy to be harsh. It is easy to speak sharp words, to shut people out, to build walls. What is hard is to stay human. What is hard is to remain tender when your heart has been bruised. Strength is in the one who, though scarred, still reaches out with love. The one who, though tired, still shows up with presence. The one who, though disappointed, still believes in goodness. We often mistake force for strength, but force seeks control, while strength seeks harmony. Force may break things. Strength knows how to hold things together. Force speaks loudly. Strength can whisper and still be heard. A truly strong person doesn't need to dominate. They do not need to declare their worth. Their energy speaks for itself. Their presence reassures. Their humility uplifts. There is power in gentleness, and those who recognize it have moved beyond the shallow definitions of strength. Empathy allows people to see others not as threats or burdens, but as mirrors of the same struggles we all carry. It creates connection, and connection is what sustains real strength. A person cannot carry the weight of life alone. They must connect, lean, and allow others to lean on them. That's where the deepest strength lies. In being strong enough to let others in. In being strong enough to admit when you're wrong. In being strong enough to forgive, not because you're weak, but because you're free. To have grace is to move through the world without letting its hardness make you hard. It's the ability to bend without breaking, to speak with clarity without shouting, to lead without crushing. Grace doesn't seek the spotlight, but its presence transforms the room. It's not afraid of silence. It's not afraid of slowing down. It brings dignity to the spaces it touches. And in that dignity, we find the real strength that lasts. A champion stands tall, even when pressed small. The weight of the world does not determine the worth of a soul. When the walls begin to close in, and the voices around seem to diminish who you are, a champion does not shrink to fit the expectations or criticisms of others. A champion stretches upward, even in the smallest spaces, even in the moments when it feels like there is no room left to breathe. That rising is not about arrogance or pride. It is about remembering one's value when the world forgets it. There are days when a champion is overlooked, misjudged, or doubted. Their light may be hidden by circumstance, their gifts ignored, their voice quieted by the louder noise of the crowd. But they do not crumble. They hold steady. They stand rooted not in praise, but in purpose. Even when they are not seen, even when their strength goes unrecognized, they remain grounded in their truth. It is not the applause that lifts them. It is their conviction, their clarity of heart, and their refusal to be made small by other people's fear or misunderstanding. To be pressed small is to carry the invisible weight of doubt, sometimes your own, sometimes the world's. The pressure comes in many forms: rejection, failure, exclusion, disappointment. It attempts to fold the spirit, to dim the fire, to make a person question whether they are worthy of taking up space. But a champion knows that space is not given. It is claimed. It is claimed through dignity, through endurance, through the quiet declaration, I belong here. I will not vanish to make others comfortable. A champion is not immune to moments of uncertainty. They too feel the tightening grip of insecurity. They too have days when they wonder if they can go on. But even in that uncertainty, they do not abandon themselves. They may whisper instead of shout. They may move slowly instead of boldly, but still they rise, still they stand. Their strength is not in the absence of hardship, but in the decision to keep going regardless of it. When life tries to reduce a champion, to define them by a single mistake, a single loss, a single chapter, they resist that reduction. They are more than a moment. They are a full story. And they honor that story by showing up fully, even when it's hard. They resist the urge to minimize themselves for approval, for comfort, for fear of judgment. They do not let anyone rewrite their worth with smaller words. They hold the pen themselves, and they write with courage. Even when backed into corners, a champion remembers that the spirit can stretch beyond limitations. They know that true elevation does not require ideal conditions. It can happen in silence, in struggle, in solitude. The rising is internal first. It is a decision to keep the back straight and the head lifted, even when everything around says to fold. Being pressed small is often part of the journey. It tests not just the strength of the body, but the resilience of the spirit. But champions do not internalize that pressure. They do not accept smallness as their identity. They may move through tight spaces, but they do so with large hearts, wide vision, and unbreakable spirit. They hold on to their wholeness, even when the world tries to divide it. They carry themselves with presence, with quiet power, with the deep knowledge that their worth is not up for negotiation. To stand tall while being pressed small is an act of resistance. It is an act of courage. It is an act of remembering the self in its fullest form and refusing to forget it, no matter the weight pressing down. Words of doubt hold no power over inner truth. They may echo loudly at times, repeating themselves in different voices, coming from different faces, slipping into the mind when the world grows quiet. They may arrive dressed as concern, disguised as logic, or masked as love, but their purpose is the same: to cause hesitation, to stir uncertainty, to plant shadows where light once lived. Yet these words, no matter how persistent, cannot reach the deepest parts of a soul that knows itself. Inner truth does not tremble when faced with doubt. It may pause, it may reflect, but it does not break. A person rooted in inner truth carries a stillness that cannot be stolen. It is not arrogance, nor stubbornness. It is clarity. It is the quiet knowing that who you are is not up for debate. The world may try to redefine you, but the self you've come to know through experience, reflection, and resilience stands unmoved. Doubt is loud because it is unsure. Truth does not compete. It stands. Words of doubt may come from others, but they also come from within. The inner critic, fed by years of judgment and comparison, learns to speak the language of fear. It whispers in moments of vulnerability, in the middle of the night, or before the leap is taken. But no matter how convincing it sounds, those words are not rooted in truth. They are shaped by fear of failure, by memories of past pain, by the opinions of others that were never yours to carry. Inner truth, on the other hand, is born from presence. It grows with every act of self-honesty, every moment of courage, every time you choose to stay true to yourself. The strength of truth lies in its quietness. It doesn't shout. It doesn't demand proof. It lives in how you walk, how you speak, how you continue when others expect you to stop. It is in the decisions you make that others don't understand, the paths you take that don't make sense to those who've never walked in your shoes. Doubt tries to make you second, guess your vision. But inner truth reminds you why you started. It brings you back to your purpose, your values, your center. People may say you are not enough, that you are dreaming too big, too fast, too far. But their words are shaped by the limits of their own belief systems, not by the measure of your potential. When you live by inner truth, you understand that not everyone will see you clearly, and that's not your burden to carry. You were not made to fit into other people's comfort zones. You were made to rise from your own center. Words of doubt lose their power the moment you choose not to absorb them. Truth is often quiet because it doesn't need to perform. It doesn't shift with opinion or dissolve under pressure. It is a steady flame in the core of your being, guiding you when visibility is low and direction feels unclear. Even when you stumble, that flame remains. It does not judge you for questioning yourself. It simply waits for you to return to it. Sometimes the doubt of others can feel heavier than your own. When someone you love, admire, or trust expresses disbelief, it can sting. But even then, their doubt is not your truth. It is their fear, their limitation, their lens. You don't need to fight it. You just need to not adopt it. Hold your truth gently, even when others handle it carelessly. Speak it softly even when others shout over it. Keep it alive even when no one else sees it, because it is yours. When you know who you are, truly know, words meant to diminish you become noise. They may graze the surface, but they do not reach the soul. They pass through, and they pass on. What remains is the still, steady knowing, the quiet power of your own truth. True power is quiet, dignified, and unwavering. It does not announce itself with noise or seek validation through attention. It moves through the world with calm purpose, leaving its mark not through force, but through presence. It does not dominate to prove its worth, nor does it shout to be heard. True power knows itself so deeply that it does not need to remind others of its existence. It is not performative, it is constant. It does not fluctuate based on the approval of others or crumble under the weight of judgment. There is a kind of strength that lives in stillness. It is found in those who carry themselves with quiet confidence, who do not rush to respond or react, who choose their words with care and their actions with intention. These are the people who walk into a room and shift the energy without having to say a word. Their power is not loud, but it is deeply felt. It radiates from within, a reflection of a person who has faced their fears, examined their wounds, and made peace with their reflection. Dignity is the armor of true power. It holds itself upright even in the face of insult or misunderstanding. It does not lower itself to win an argument or prove a point. Instead, it chooses restraint, not because it is weak, but because it understands that silence can be stronger than noise. There is a power in remaining composed when others expect you to break. There is a strength in being rooted when everything around you is pushing for you to react, to crumble, to conform. Unwavering power does not depend on mood or moment. It does not disappear in hardship or falter in uncertainty. It remains. It stays true to values and purpose even when compromise seems easier. It is the decision to keep showing up with integrity when no one is watching. It is the refusal to let external chaos disrupt inner peace. This kind of power isn't temporary. It's enduring. It's not reactive. It's intentional. It does not seek to overpower others. It empowers from within. It gives space for others to grow rather than shrinking them to feel taller. It knows that lifting others is not a threat to its own light. There is no insecurity in true power. It is not born from dominance or fear, but from self-awareness and inner alignment. It listens before speaking. It reflects before acting. It holds back not out of hesitation, but out of wisdom. There is a softness in this strength, but it is not fragile. It bends, but it does not break. It adapts, but it does not abandon itself. It knows the cost of compromise and chooses authenticity instead. When storms come, true power does not panic. It steadies itself, grounded in purpose and perspective. It does not seek to impress. It seeks to serve. It does not rely on spectacle. It relies on truth. The world often mistakes noise for strength and silence for weakness. But time reveals the difference. What is loud may fade. What is forced may break. But what is rooted in quiet dignity endures. It survives setbacks, criticism, and time. It becomes something more than strength. It becomes legacy. The most powerful people are often the least boastful. They walk through adversity with their heads high, not because they are untouched, but because they are unshaken. Their resilience is not for show, it is for survival. Their calm is not passive, it is a decision. Their silence is not emptiness, it is depth. Their stillness is not absence, it is mastery.